Power has always worn a target on its back. Since humans first gathered round fires and chose leaders to guide them through the darkness, there have been those who believed that the quickest path to change wasn't through words or votes, but through blood. One moment, one blade, one bullet, and the world tilts on its axis. This is the story of assassination, that ancient, terrible arithmetic where one death is meant to equal transformation. It's a story written in the margins of history books, whispered in Senate chambers, and scrawled on the walls of prison cells. From Caesar's blood pooling on the marble floors of Rome to drones circling silently above Middle Eastern highways, we've refined the art of political murder, but never escaped its shadow. See, here's the thing about killing leaders. It never goes quite the way the assassin imagines. Pull that trigger, plunge that knife, and you don't just kill a person. You kill a moment, a movement, sometimes an entire era. And what rises from that corpse? Well, that's anybody's guess. Tonight, we're going to walk through 2,000 years of political murder. We'll stand in Roman forums and American theaters, in Indian gardens and Israeli squares. We'll meet the men and women who thought they could change history with a single act of violence, and we'll see how often they were right, just not in the way they expected. Rome, March 15th, 44 BC. The most famous murder in history is about to go down. Picture this. Rome's running hot. The Republic, that 500-year-old system where no one man could hold too much power, it's gasping for air. And standing over it, like a doctor who might save it or might just put it out of its misery, his gaze Julius Caesar. Caesar's resume is mental. He's conquered Gaul, that's modern France basically, added Britain to Rome's portfolio, crossed the Rhine into Germany just to show he could. He's written his own history books, making himself the hero. He slept with Cleopatra, for crying out loud. The man doesn't just have an ego. He's practically invented the concept. But here's where it gets messy. Caesar's just been declared dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. In a republic that's supposed to rotate power, that's like spitting in everyone's face. The Senate's lost its teeth. Elections are a joke. Caesar sits in a golden chair, wears a laurel wreath to hide his balding head, and some reckon he wants to be king. King! Romans haven't had one of those for nearly 5 centuries, and they're allergic to the very word. Enter the conspirators. 60 senators, give or take, led by Marcus Brutus and Gaius Cassius. Brutus is the key player here, descended from the man who kicked out Rome's last king, son of Caesar's mistress. Yeah, it's complicated, and Caesar's own protege. The man's torn between loyalty to his mentor and duty to the Republic. Cassius? He just hates Caesar's guts, personal beef mixed with political principle. They've been meeting in secret, swearing oaths in the dead of night. The plan? Do it in public, at a Senate meeting. Make it official-like. This isn't murder, they tell themselves. It's tyrannicide, the killing of a tyrant. Noble stuff. March 15th arrives. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, wakes up screaming from nightmares. She's seen her husband murdered. A soothsayer, one of those street prophets, has already warned Caesar about this exact date. Beware the Ides of March, even the sacred chickens. Yeah, Romans read omens from chicken guts, don't ask, are giving bad signs. Caesar nearly stays home. Nearly. But Decimus Brutus, another conspirator and supposed friend, shows up at his house. Come on, Jules, he basically says. You gonna let your wife's bad dreams make you look weak? The Senate's waiting. So Caesar goes. As he enters the theater of Pompey, they're meeting there, 'cause the regular Senate house is under renovation. He passes that same soothsayer. The Ides of March are come, Caesar says, cocky as ever. Aye, Caesar, the prophet replies, but not gone. Inside, it's a setup. One senator grabs Caesar's toga, pretending to make a petition. It's the signal. 23 senators pull daggers from their togas. 23 stab wounds follow. They all want in on this, Shared responsibility, shared guilt. Caesar fights at first, but when he sees Brutus among the assassins, something breaks in him. Suetonius says Caesar covered his head with his toga and just stopped fighting. His last words might have been, "Et tu, Brute?" Or they might have been in Greek, "Kai su tenon?" You too, my child? Or maybe he said nothing at all. Died in silence at the base of Pompey's statue. Pompey, his old rival. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Here's the thing, though. These senators, these self-proclaimed saviors of the Republic, they had no plan for what came next. They thought Romans would cheer them as liberators. Instead, they got chaos. Mark Antony reads Caesar's will at the funeral. Every Roman citizen gets cash. Caesar's gardens become public parks. Suddenly, the tyrant looks pretty generous. The mob goes mental. Conspirators flee the city. Within 2 years, most of the assassins are dead. Brutus and Cassius fall on their swords after losing at Philippi. The Republic they murdered for? It dies choking on its own blood through 17 years of civil war. Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, becomes Augustus, first emperor of Rome. The very thing they tried to prevent. One-man rule becomes the norm for the next 5 centuries. Caesar's assassination becomes the template, the ultimate cautionary tale. You can kill the man, but you can't kill what he represents. Sometimes you just make it stronger. Aegea, Macedonia, 336 BC. Another assassination that'll flip the ancient world on its head. Philip II of Macedon is not a nice bloke. He spent 23 years turning Macedonia from a backwater kingdom that Greeks laugh at into the dominant power of the Mediterranean. He's revolutionized warfare. His phalanx formation is basically the ancient world's tank. He's conquered Greece not through brute force, but through clever politics, bribes, and only fighting when he has to. Philip's mules, they call the gold-laden donkeys he sends to buy off enemies. Cheaper than soldiers, he reckons. But Philip's real genius? He's united the perpetually squabbling Greek city-states under one banner. Sure, he had to crush a few of them first, but now they're all pointed in the same direction, east, toward Persia, the ancient enemy. Philip's gonna lead a pan-Hellenic crusade against the Persian Empire, pay them back for invading Greece a century and a half ago. The wedding of his daughter Cleopatra, not that Cleopatra, different one, to the king of Epirus should be his victory lap. It's massive, delegates from all over Greece, elaborate ceremonies, theatrical performances. Philip walks into the theater separately from his bodyguards. Wants to show he's not afraid, doesn't need protection. He's among friends, right? Wrong, dead wrong. Pausanias, captain of Philip's bodyguards, has been waiting for this moment. The backstory's proper twisted. Years ago, Pausanias was Philip's lover. Standard practice in Macedonian court, that. But Philip moved on to a younger model, also named Pausanias. The jilted Pausanias talked trash about his replacement. The new boy, trying to prove his manhood, got himself killed in battle doing something stupidly brave. The dead boy's mentor, Attalus, wanted revenge. So he got Pausanias drunk and had him gang-raped by stable boys. Pausanias went to Philip for justice. Philip did bugger all, couldn't afford to alienate Attalus, who was leading the advance force to Asia. Gave Pausanias some gifts and a promotion instead. Like that was gonna fix it. But here's where it gets murky. Some ancient sources hint at a deeper conspiracy. Philip's wife Olympias, mother of Alexander, she hated Philip by this point. Philip had taken another wife, questioned Alexander's legitimacy, caused a massive family row. Alexander and Olympias had been in self-imposed exile. They'd only just returned. So when Pausanias strikes, one thrust between the ribs, Philip drops like a stone. Was he just a man scorned? Or was he someone's weapon? Pausanias runs for horses he'd stationed outside. He's planned this, but he trips on a vine root. Philip's other bodyguards catch him, spear him on the spot. Dead men tell no tales. Convenient, that. Within hours, 20-year-old Alexander takes the throne. Within days, he's eliminated rivals. Within 2 years, he's conquered everything his father planned to and more. 13 years later, he's built the largest empire the world has ever seen, stretching from the Adriatic to India. Would Philip have achieved what Alexander did? Doubt it. Philip was brilliant, but he was a pragmatist. Alexander was touched by something else. Call it madness. Call it genius. Call it destiny. He didn't just want to conquer. He wanted to be a god, and in a way, he succeeded. 2,300 years later, we still call him the Great. One assassination, one moment, the entire trajectory of Western civilization shifts. Greek culture spreads to India. Trade routes open that'll last millennia. The New Testament gets written in Greek because of Alexander's conquests. All because a bodyguard held a grudge and a king wanted to show off. Canterbury Cathedral, December 29th, 1170. It's almost Vespers. That evening prayer and the last minutes of Thomas Becket's life are ticking away. To understand why 4 knights are about to burst into one of Christianity's holiest sites and commit sacrilege, we need to rewind. Way back. Thomas Becket and King Henry II, they used to be proper mates. Best friends, even. Becket was Henry's chancellor, his right-hand man, his drinking buddy. They were reforming England together, bringing order to a kingdom that had been torn apart by civil war. Becket loved the high life, fancy clothes, good wine, hunting with the king. He was more royal than the royals. Henry had a problem, though. The church. In medieval England, the church ran its own courts, collected its own taxes, answered to the Pope in Rome, not the king in London. Clergy could literally get away with murder, claim benefit of clergy, and escape royal justice. Henry wanted England unified under one law, his law. So Henry gets clever, or thinks he does. He makes his worldly, luxury-loving chancellor the Archbishop of Canterbury. Becket'll be his man on the inside, bring the church to heel. Smart play, right? Except something happens when Becket puts on those holy robes. Call it conversion, call it political calculation, call it whatever you want, Thomas Becket transforms. Off come the silk shirts. On goes the hair shirt, crawling with lice, worn against his skin as penance. The king's drinking buddy becomes an ascetic who sleeps on the floor and washes the feet of beggars. And worse for Henry, Becket doesn't just embrace his new role. He becomes the church's fiercest defender. Every privilege, every exemption, every ancient right the church claims, Becket fights for it. The man who was supposed to be Henry's inside man becomes his greatest opponent. The relationship deteriorates fast. These two former friends are now in a proper power struggle. Who runs England, king or church? They clash over everything. Criminous clerks, priests who commit crimes, appointment of bishops, church property. It gets personal, vicious. 1164, Council of Clarendon. Henry lays down new laws limiting church power. Becket signs, then recants. Says he sinned by signing. Henry's furious. Charges Becket with embezzlement from his chancellor days. Becket flees to France, spends 6 years in exile, firing off excommunications like a medieval Twitter troll. 1170, they reconcile. Sort of. Becket returns to England. But he's immediately back at it, excommunicating bishops who supported Henry. The king's in Normandy when he hears this. And this is where it happens, the moment that'll echo through centuries. Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest? That's the clean version. Other accounts have Henry saying worse. What miserable drones and traitors have I nourished and brought up in my household, who let their lord be treated with such shameful contempt by a low-born cleric. Whatever the exact words, the meaning was clear to 4 knights in that room. Reginald Fitzurse, Hugh de Morville, William de Tracy, and Richard Le Breton. They don't wait for clarification. Don't ask if the king's serious. They sail for England immediately. December 29th, they arrive at Canterbury. First, they try to arrest Becket. He refuses. They leave, come back armed. Find him in the cathedral. The monks have dragged him there, thinking it's sanctuary. Becket could bar the doors. He refuses. The Church of God must not be made a fortress, he says. The knights enter. Where is Thomas Becket, traitor to the king and country? I am here, no traitor to the king, but a priest of God. They try to drag him out. He resists. Things get messy. The first blow slices off the top of his skull. Becket falls to his knees. Second blow. Third. The fourth knight goes too far. His sword breaks on the cathedral floor, so hard is the blow. A clerk traveling with the knights steps forward, puts his foot on Becket's neck, and scatters the archbishop's brains across the stone. "Let's away, knights," one says. "This fellow won't rise again." But he was wrong, dead wrong. Within days, miracles are reported at Becket's tomb. The blind see, the lame walk. Within 3 years, he's Saint Thomas Becket. Canterbury becomes the greatest pilgrimage site in England. Think Lourdes, think Mecca for medieval Christians. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales? That's pilgrims traveling to Becket's shrine 2 centuries later. Henry? He's destroyed. Not politically, he survives that. But personally, the guilt eats him alive. 1174, he walks barefoot through Canterbury streets, lets monks flog him at Becket's tomb. The most powerful king in Europe, on his knees, being whipped for a murder he maybe didn't order, but definitely caused. And the church? It wins this round. Big time. Killing Becket doesn't weaken it. It gives it a martyr. Church courts continue. Papal power in England grows stronger. It'll take another 3.5 centuries, and another Henry, before an English king finally breaks Rome's power. Henry VIII, who, ironically, destroys Becket's shrine and scatters his bones. Delft, Netherlands, July 10, 1584. William of Orange, a.k.a. William the Silent, is about to become the first head of state assassinated with a firearm. Progress in it? William's leading the Dutch revolt against Spanish rule. This isn't just politics, it's religious war. Protestant Dutch versus Catholic Spain. Philip II of Spain. Yeah, another Philip. He's put a price on William's head. 25,000 crowns. That's generational wealth. Set your family up forever money. Enter Balthasar Gerard, a Catholic fanatic who's been planning this for years. Years. He's ingratiated himself into William's household, pretended to be a Protestant sympathizer. On July 10th, William's having lunch with his family. Gerard waits in a corridor. William gets up to leave. 3 shots from a wheel-lock pistol. Close range. William's dead before he hits the floor. His last words? "My God, have pity on my soul. My God, have pity on this poor people." Gerard's caught immediately. His torture and execution? Medieval brutal. They don't just kill him, they destroy him over days. But he dies thinking he's earned paradise. William's death could have ended Dutch independence. Instead, it galvanizes it. His son Maurice takes over, proves to be an even better military commander. The Dutch Republic survives, thrives, becomes a global power. And that bounty Philip offered? It starts an arms race of assassination. Suddenly, every disgruntled subject with a pistol thinks they can change history and get rich doing it. Paris, May 14, 1610. Henry IV of France, Henry Cotter to his people, is in his carriage, heading to see his finance minister. Traffic's bad, some things never change, and the carriage stops on the Rue de la Ferronnerie. Henry's the king who famously said, "Paris is well worth a mass." Converted from Protestant to Catholic to unite France after decades of religious war. He's issued the Edict of Nantes, giving Protestants rights, ending the killing. He's rebuilt France, earned the nickname Good King Henry. Common people love him. Religious extremists? Not so much. Francois Ravaillac is one of those extremists. Catholic fanatic who's had visions telling him Henry's about to make war on the Pope. He wasn't. Ravaillac's been stalking the king for weeks. When the carriage stops, he sees his chance. Jumps on the wheel, leans in, stabs Henry 3 times. The second strike punctures the king's lung and heart. Henry's dead in minutes. They torture Ravaillac for weeks, trying to find co-conspirators. He insists he acted alone. They literally tear him apart. Horses pull his limbs off. But here's the aftermath. Henry's son is 9 years old. France descends back into noble conflicts. The religious tolerance Henry fought for? Gradually eroded. 75 years later, Louis XIV revokes the Edict of Nantes. Hundreds of thousands of Protestants flee France, taking their skills, their trades, their money. France's loss becomes everyone else's gain. 1 man, 1 knife, 3 stabs. Decades of progress undone. Ford's Theater, Washington, D.C., April 14, 1865. Good Friday. The bloodiest war in American history ended 5 days ago when Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox. The President and Mrs. Lincoln are catching a comedy, Our American Cousin. They need a laugh after 4 years of hell. Abraham Lincoln's transformation during the Civil War is something else. The prairie lawyer who insisted he wasn't an abolitionist, just wanted to stop slavery's spread, has become the great emancipator. He's freed 4 million enslaved people, redefined what America means. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. That's Lincoln at Gettysburg, reimagining democracy itself. But tonight, he's just a tired man trying to enjoy an evening with his wife. Mary Todd Lincoln, who's lost her marbles a bit since their son Willie died in the White House. She needs this normalcy. They're holding hands, whispering. Mary'll later say these were their happiest moments in years. John Wilkes Booth knows this theater like the back of his hand. He's acted here dozens of times. Matinee idol, they called him. Women swooned. Men envied. He had everything, fame, wealth, talent. But the wars destroyed his world. The Confederacy, slavery, the whole Southern way of life, it's all crashing down. Lincoln? He's the devil who did it. Booth's original plan was kidnapping. Grab Lincoln, trade him for Confederate prisoners. But Appomattox ended that. This morning, Booth learned Lincoln would be at Ford's. New plan. Decapitation strike. He'll kill Lincoln. His conspirator George Atzerodt will kill Vice President Andrew Johnson. Lewis Powell will kill Secretary of State William Seward. Destroy the entire Union government in one night. Booth times it perfectly. 10:15 p.m. He knows the play, knows exactly when the biggest laugh comes, when the character Asa Trenchard delivers the line, "Well, I guess I know enough to turn you inside out, you sockdologizing old man-trap." The theater erupts in laughter. Perfect cover. Booth slips into the presidential box. Lincoln's bodyguard, John Frederick Parker, is supposed to be there. He's not. He's either watching the play from elsewhere or having a drink at the tavern next door. Dereliction of duty that changes history. The .44 caliber Derringer is small, almost a toy. One shot. Booth puts it against the back of Lincoln's head, just behind the left ear. Pulls the trigger. The ball lodges behind Lincoln's right eye. Major Henry Rathbone, sitting in the box, lunges at Booth. Booth slashes him with a knife, jumps from the box to the stage. His spur catches the Treasury flag decorating the box. He lands awkwardly, breaks his left fibula. But he's an actor. The show must go on. He stands, faces the audience, raises the bloody knife. Sic semper tyrannis. Thus always to tyrants, Virginia's state motto. Some heard him add, "The South is avenged." The audience is confused. Is this part of the play? Booth limps off stage, pushes past anyone in his way, mounts his horse, and escapes into the night. Lincoln never regains consciousness. They carry him across the street to the Peterson house. He's too tall for the bed. They lay him diagonally. All night, cabinet members, generals, friends crowd the tiny room. Mary Lincoln's wailing can be heard throughout the house. At 7:22 a.m., April 15th, Lincoln dies. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton says either, "Now he belongs to the ages," or "Now he belongs to the angels." Nobody's sure which. Booth's conspiracy mostly fails. Atzerodt loses his nerve, gets drunk instead of killing Johnson. Powell nearly kills Seward, slashing his face and throat, but the secretary survives. Booth himself is cornered in a Virginia barn. 12 days later, shot dead or shoots himself. Another historical argument. But Lincoln's assassination? That works too well. Andrew Johnson, the replacement? He's a Tennessee Democrat, a racist who undermines Reconstruction at every turn. The radical Republicans in Congress wanted to remake the South, give freed slaves real power, real protection. Lincoln might have managed it. He had the political skill, the moral authority. Johnson? He lets the South slip back into quasi-slavery through black codes and sharecropping. The KK rises. Jim Crow laws spread. The promise of equality gets deferred for a century. All those Union soldiers who died to make men free, their victory gets half undone by one actor with a gun. St. Petersburg, March 13, 1881. Irony's about to blow up, literally, on the streets of the Russian capital. Alexander II is the most reform-minded Tsar Russia's ever had. In 1861, same year America's Civil War started, he freed the serfs, 23 million people. Overnight, no longer property. He's reformed the courts, the military, local government. He's considering a constitution, a parliament. In an autocracy that stood for centuries, he's actually trying to modernize. But it's not enough for the radicals. Never is it? They want revolution, not reform. A group called Narodnaya Volya, People's Will, has decided that Tsar must die. They've tried before, multiple times. Bombing his dining room, he was late to dinner. Mining railway tracks, wrong train, another palace bombing. The man's got 9 lives. Not today, though. Today they've got a foolproof plan. Multiple bombers stationed along his probable routes. If one fails, another's waiting. Nikolai Rysakov throws the first bomb. It explodes under the Tsar's armored carriage. Yeah, he's got an armored carriage, that's how many people want him dead. Cossack guards are wounded. The carriage is wrecked, but Alexander's unhurt. Here's where it goes wrong. Or right, depending on your politics. Alexander insists on checking on the wounded guards. He gets out of the carriage. Fatal mistake. Ignacy Rynuitsky is waiting. He throws his bomb at Alexander's feet. The explosion tears the Tsar apart, legs shattered, stomach ripped open, face mutilated. Rynuitsky's also fatally wounded. Revolutionary and royalty, dying together in the snow. They rush Alexander to the Winter Palace. His family gathers. His grandson, the future Nicholas II, yeah, the one who'll be shot in a basement in 1918, watches his grandfather die. Blood soaking into priceless carpets. The reformer Tsar's last words? "I am sweeping through the palace." His son, Alexander III, takes over. Where his father zigged toward reform, he zags hard toward repression. Liberal ministers? Fired. Constitution? Cancelled? Secret police? Expanded. Jewish pogroms? Encouraged. He turns Russia into a pressure cooker, lid screwed tight. That pressure? It'll explode in 1917. The revolution the assassins wanted? It comes just 36 years late and infinitely bloodier than they imagined. Millions dead. A communist regime that makes the Tsars look liberal. All because some radicals couldn't wait for gradual reform. Sarajevo, June 28, 1914. In about 3 hours, a 19-year-old with tuberculosis is going to kill 2 people and 40 million will die as a result. Not directly, mind you, but causation's funny like that. Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, is visiting Sarajevo. It's a provocation, really. June 28th is St. Vitus's Day, the anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, when Serbia lost its independence to the Ottomans. Sacred day for Serbian nationalism. And here's the future emperor of another empire that controls Serbia's brothers in Bosnia, parading through their streets. The Black Hand, a Serbian nationalist secret society, think extremist intelligence service meets terrorist organization, has sent 7 assassins. 7. They're strung out along the Archduke's published route, because get this, they published the bloody route in the newspapers. Security in 1914 was different. First assassin, Muhammed Bedazik, loses his nerve. Doesn't throw his bomb. Second, Nedaleko Vabranovia, doesn't lose his nerve. Throws his bomb at Franz Ferdinand's car. It bounces off, explodes under the following car. Wounded officers, panicked crowds. Vabranovia swallows cyanide, jumps in the river. The cyanide's expired, just makes him vomit. The river's 4 inches deep. Crowd beats him half to death before police arrest him. Franz Ferdinand, showing either bravery or stupidity, insists on visiting the wounded officers in the hospital. Changes the route. And here's where fate shows its twisted sense of humor. Nobody tells the drivers. The lead car takes the original route. Franz Ferdinand's driver follows. They realize the mistake at the corner of Franz Joseph Street. Driver stops to reverse, stalls the car, right in front of Schiller's Delicatessen, where Gavrilo Princip, the most determined of the assassins, happens to be standing. He'd given up, thought the mission failed, was literally getting a sandwich. Princip can't believe his luck, steps forward. 2 shots from a Belgian FN model 1910 pistol. First hits Franz Ferdinand in the neck, severing his jugular. Second hits his wife Sophie in the abdomen. She was pregnant. Franz Ferdinand's last words, repeated over and over as he bleeds out. Sophie, Sophie, don't die. Live for our children. They're both dead within the hour. Princip's arrested immediately. Too young for execution under Austro-Hungarian law. 20 was the minimum age. He'll die in prison in 1918, his tuberculosis finally catching up. But not before he sees what his bullets unleashed. Austria-Hungary uses the assassination as pretext to crush Serbia. Sends an ultimatum designed to be refused. Serbia's ally Russia mobilizes. Austria's ally Germany declares war on Russia. Russia's ally France mobilizes. Germany invades neutral Belgium to get to France. Belgium's ally Britain declares war on Germany. Within 6 weeks of Sarajevo, Europe's at war. Within 4 years, empires that stood for centuries are gone. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, dead. The Ottoman Empire, dead. The German Empire, dead. The Russian Empire, dead, replaced by Bolsheviks. 10 million soldiers dead. 20 million wounded. Spanish flu, spreading through the trenches and the returning soldiers, kills 50 million more. The peace treaty, Versailles? It's so harsh on Germany that it plants the seeds for another war. Hitler rises partly on resentment of that treaty. World War II, the Holocaust, the atomic bomb, the Cold War. Draw a line from Princip's pistol to Hiroshima. It's straighter than you'd think. New Delhi, January 30th, 1948. Birla House Garden. 5:17 p.m. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Mahatma, great soul to his followers, is walking to his evening prayer meeting. He's late, which bothers him. Punctuality is a virtue. He's leaning on two grandnieces, Abha and Manu. He's been fasting again, protesting Hindu-Muslim violence. At 78, these fasts nearly kill him. But they work. When Gandhi starves, India listens. He's just ended another fast 5 days ago. Got the leaders of Delhi to pledge peace between Hindus and Muslims. Not everyone's happy about it. Hindu nationalists think he's betraying them, appeasing Muslims, weakening the new nation. Nathuram Godse is one of those nationalists. Brahmin, educated, articulate, editor of a Hindu nationalist newspaper. He's tried this before, 8 days ago, but lost his nerve. Not today. He's got a Beretta M1934 in his pocket and a head full of grievances. Gandhi sees Godse approaching, hands pressed together in greeting. Gandhi raises his hands to return the namaste. Godse pushes Manu aside, pulls the pistol, Gandhi falls. His last words, "Hey, Rama, oh God," dead within minutes. Here's the thing about killing Gandhi. It's like killing a saint during Mass. The man who spent his life preaching ahimsa, non-violence, who drove the British Empire out of India without firing a shot, who fasted to stop religious riots, murdered by one of his own countrymen over religion. The reaction is volcanic, but not the way Godse expected. He thought killing Gandhi would trigger a Hindu uprising against Muslim appeasement. Instead, Hindus and Muslims mourn together. The riots stop. The country that was tearing itself apart over partition suddenly remembers what Gandhi taught them. Godse, he's hanged in 1949, unrepentant to the end. But his ideology doesn't die. Hindu nationalism goes underground, resurfaces decades later. The RSS, the organization Godse was associated with, eventually spawns the BJP, which will run India in the 21st century. Gandhi's killer loses the battle, but his ideological descendants arguably win the war. And Gandhi himself becomes immortal. The half-naked fakir, as Churchill called him dismissively, becomes the global symbol of peaceful resistance. Martin Luther King Jr. studies his methods. The Dalai Lama quotes him. Every non-violent movement afterward claims his legacy. But here's the dark irony. Gandhi's assassination also shows the limits of non-violence. You can't fast a fanatic into submission. Some people are beyond persuasion, beyond moral appeal. Gandhi believed there was goodness in everyone. Godse proved him wrong. Lorraine Motel, Memphis, Tennessee. April 4th, 1968, 6:01 p.m. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is in town supporting striking sanitation workers. I am a man, that's their protest sign. Basic dignity, that's all they want. King's tired, bone tired. He's been at this for 13 years, since Montgomery. He's only 39, but looks older. The stress, the travel, the constant death threats, they're killing him slowly anyway. Last night, he gave a speech at Mason Temple. Prophetic, people will call it later. I've been to the mountaintop, he said. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you. But I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. He's standing on the balcony outside room 306, talking to Jesse Jackson below about dinner. Ben Branch is there too. King asks him to play Precious Lord at tonight's meeting. Play it real pretty, he says. The shot comes from a boarding house bathroom window across the street. Remington 760 Gaymaster. The bullet tears through King's jaw and neck, severing his spinal cord. He's knocked backward, lies on the balcony floor. Ralph Abernathy holds him. King's eyes are moving, but he can't speak. Dead at St. Joseph's Hospital an hour later. James Earl Ray, the shooter, is a small-time criminal, a George Wallace supporter, a racist. But conspiracy theories start immediately and never stop. Did Ray act alone? Was the FBI involved? They'd been harassing King for years. Wiretaps, blackmail attempts, a letter suggesting he kill himself. J. Edgar Hoover called him the most dangerous Negro leader in the country. King's death triggers riots in 110 cities. Washington, D.C. burns. Chicago burns. Baltimore burns. 43 dead, thousands injured. President Johnson deploys 58,000 National Guard and Army troops. America looks like a war zone because it is one. But here's what really dies with King: the dream of nonviolent change. At least for a while, the Black Panthers rise. Black power replaces "we shall overcome." The civil rights movement fractures. Some argue King was more useful to the establishment dead than alive, a martyred moderate compared to the radicals who follow. Ray's captured 2 months later at Heathrow Airport. Pleads guilty, gets 99 years, and recants, claims innocence until he dies in prison in 1998. The King family'll actually come to believe him, think he's a patsy. Coretta Scott King meets with Ray. Dexter King, Martin's son, shakes his hand, says he believes him. King becomes an American saint, the only non-president with a national holiday. But the America that honors him on the third Monday in January? Still struggling with everything he fought against. Poverty, racism, violence, the dream? Still deferred. Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles. June 5, 1968, just after midnight. Robert F. Kennedy has just won the California Democratic primary. He's on his way to the presidency, probably. The Kennedy magic is working again. He's bridging divides nobody else can. Black and white, rich and poor, hawk and dove. He speaks to the dispossessed in a way his brother never quite could. 2 months earlier, when King was killed, Bobby was in Indianapolis, supposed to campaign in the ghetto. Police told him don't go, too dangerous. He went anyway. Stood on a flatbed truck, told the crowd King was dead. First they'd heard. He quoted Aeschylus from memory. In our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart until, in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. Indianapolis didn't burn that night. Only major city that didn't. Now he's in the Ambassador Hotel kitchen pantry, taking a shortcut to a press conference. Shaking hands with kitchen workers, busboys, dishwashers. These are his people. Sirhan is waiting. 24-year-old Palestinian. Drunk. Angry about Kennedy's support for Israel. Has RFK must die written in his notebook over and over. He's been at the hotel's gun range earlier. Yeah, the hotel had a gun range. It was the 60s. Kennedy turns to shake hands with busboy Juan Rero. Sirhan steps forward, shoots. 8 shots from a .22 caliber Iver Johnson revolver. 3 hit Kennedy, 1 behind the right ear, the fatal one. 5 others are wounded. The scene is chaos. Rosie Grier and Rafer Johnson, football players working security, wrestle Sirhan down. The crowd screaming, "Kill him." But Kennedy, dying on that kitchen floor, his head cradled by Romero, whispers, "Is everybody okay?" Ethel Kennedy, pregnant with their 11th child, pushes through. "Get back, all of you," she screams. Then to her husband, "I'm with you, my baby." They get him to Good Samaritan Hospital. 5 doctors, 6 hours of surgery. No chance. He dies at 1:44 a.m., June 6th. 42 years old. America goes into shock. Again, 2 Kennedys. 2 kings, Martin and Malcolm. All within 5 years. The country's killing its young princes, eating its own future. Sirhan's still alive, still in prison. Still claims he doesn't remember the shooting. More conspiracy theories. Manchurian Candidate, second gunman, CIA, plot. The pantry was demolished before proper forensic investigation. We'll never know for sure. What dies with Bobby? The last real chance for the Democrats in '68. Nixon wins, extends Vietnam for 7 more years. The Kennedy era ends not with a bang, but with a whimper. Ted Kennedy lives, but never becomes president. Chappaquiddick sees to that. And something else dies, innocence, maybe. Or hope. After Bobby, politicians get serious security. They stop walking through crowds, stop the spontaneous handshakes. Democracy gets bubble-wrapped. The distance between leaders and lead grows wider. Bobby's son, RFK Jr., grows up to become a vaccine conspiracy theorist. The Kennedy name becomes complicated, tarnished. Camelot reveals itself as myth. The dream dies in a hotel kitchen, and America wakes up meaner. So here we are. 2,000 years of political murder. And what have we learned? That assassination is seductive. One bullet seems simpler than 1,000 battles. One death easier than changing 1,000,000 minds. But it's fool's gold, this simplicity. You kill the man, not the idea. Sometimes you make the idea stronger. Caesar's assassination didn't save the Roman Republic. It buried it. Lincoln's murder didn't preserve the Southern way of life. It made him a saint and the South a pariah. Gandhi's killing didn't stop Indian independence. It unified it. Rabin's assassination didn't save Greater Israel. It might have doomed it. Pattern emerges, doesn't it? The assassins rarely get what they want. Booth thought he'd be hailed as a hero. He died, hunted, and hated. Princip wanted Serbian freedom. He got World War I and Yugoslavia's eventual bloody collapse. The men who killed the Kennedys and King? They're footnotes to the legends they created. But sometimes, just sometimes, the assassin succeeds in ways they never intended. Philip of Macedon's death gave us Alexander the Great. Franz Ferdinand's murder reshaped the entire 20th century. Would we have had World War II without World War I? The Cold War without World War II? Hard to say. That bullet in Sarajevo might echo until the sun burns out. The methods evolve, but the impulse remains constant. From daggers in the Senate to drones in the sky, we keep thinking we can solve our problems by subtraction. Remove the right person and everything changes. Except it doesn't work that way. Never has. Every assassination is a confession of failure. Failure to persuade, to compete, to wait. It's the ultimate shortcut that usually leads nowhere good. The blood spilled doesn't water the tree of liberty or tyranny or anything else. It just stains the ground and breeds more violence. And yet, and yet it continues. Right now, somewhere, someone's planning the next one, convinced they'll be different, that their target is special, that history will thank them. They're almost certainly wrong, but they'll do it anyway. Because that's what humans do. We keep trying to kill our way to paradise, no matter how many times it leads to hell. The ghosts of all these murdered leaders might laugh at that, or weep, probably both.